which one do we take home here? Because it's not me. You know, Minister, the worry is you shouldn't think you are speaking to me. These matters, as you stand there addressing us, you are clarifying the country which is troubled by these things. That ministers have got access to dangerous criminals to an extent that they can even have access to them even when they are behind bars. Matala was found with a phone in a maximum prison. Matala produces a minister's affidavit from a maximum prison. According to minister's evidence that it's not me, he wrote to me. Because of that, then we use the affidavit. What is the answer, Chair?
The answer is, I did say in the discussion, in the course of discussion over time with lawyers, I did express a need or a wish that I distance myself or be away from Matala. Remember, I had issued a statement on the 9th of July saying I've never spoken to Matala, I've never received or asked for anything from him. So I made this statement. Now we discuss with the lawyers. You are open. You are relating your wishes that relate to the case. Now, once I expressed that, now that wish, you call it an instruction. I don't want to disagree with you that it was an instruction as received. Next thing, lawyers then, pursuing my wish, they call Matala's lawyers. And then this is the result. Now, I don't think you should stress this thing any far or any further other than what it is. That is an expression of what I had said. Because I said, I don't know. If this affidavit was saying anything different, then I would be concerned. But this says what I said I never, and so on, and I expressed a wish. And I don't think there's any other better authority than a person himself, that there's no line whatsoever between him and myself.
Minister, where do I get that letter you were reading? Because I want to read it again. It doesn't say. If your lawyers approached those guys, they would have said, dear so-and-so, in line with the letter you wrote to us requesting affidavit from our client, please find attached affidavit. It says, dear so-and-so, we represent so-and-so, and therefore we represent Matala and the wife, and our client wishes to state it clear that he doesn't know the minister and this is the affidavit. So it's not what you are saying. Your wishes were never delivered to Matala by your lawyers. Never. According to that letter.
Never.
So how does Matala now know minister has got wishes to have a...
My lawyer spoke to his lawyers. That's what I'm saying.
Check, you mark that. Who have directed that I send this email to you. I understand that you represent the police commissioner, Mr. uSenzo Mchunu, at the Madlanga Commission. They don't say, we acknowledge your request, and following that request, please find attached affidavit of Mr. Matala. So this letter is the first initiative in relation to the affidavit. How does Matala know that a minister has got wishes? You sit with your lawyers, you express your wishes, and then you go separate ways. Before you know it, affidavit comes from maximum prison to your lawyer, who has never communicated with the lawyer of Matala, or who has never spoken to Matala himself. So how does Matala now come to send you an affidavit which you have not requested, which earlier on you said you gave them instruction, earlier on you said they acted on their own, and so on. Now we'll park that. We now are here. What it gives effect to this letter? What makes these people to write this letter and then send you an affidavit?
It's my lawyers talking to Matala's lawyers.
Okay. Let me leave it, Chair. Why would a minister, even if this guy gave you the affidavit, where is, I know legally there's nothing wrong and all of that, but morally society has got a problem with this chap, and you still want to associate in a way with this chap, because you didn't need Matala's affidavit to tell us that you don't know Matala, because we'll have Matala as well. He's on our list to ask him, do you know the minister? And if he says yes, then we know there's contradictions, perhaps further inquiry will be made. But you don't need Matala's affidavit in your clean papers, your morally high standard papers. You don't need such a character's affidavit to be attached and to be associated with you. This is a guy they say got 360 million tender in your department, and you say you cancelled it because it was wrongly awarded. Why would you want to be associated with such a person, irrespective of him writing in your favor that, no, I don't know, the minister, irrespective of writing in your, it's a character you don't want to be associated with. Now we're sitting here, you've got a affidavit from a morally questionable character, whereas a character that writes an affidavit from maximum prison.
I don't want to be associated with Matala. This is what the affidavit says.
But you are now associated. We've got Matala's affidavit. You've got Matala's signature in your papers.
I don't want to be associated.
So why put his affidavit in your papers?
The affidavit doesn't say so. I don't want to be associated with him in any way. And this is what the affidavit says.
Yeah, but who you get affidavits from is very important. You don't just get affidavit from questionable characters, especially people who are behind bars. That as a minister of police, you, even if there's nothing legally wrong, you should just know it might raise certain questions, which gave, this situation we find ourselves in. Had you not solicited anything from Matala, whereas in maximum prison where it should be difficult to access him, we now sitting here and you've got Matala's affidavit and we've been told that you are associated with Matala, you are enabling Matala to engage in illegal activities in the department and all of that. Something that you came here to clarify, but you come carry Matala's affidavit to come and clarify us that Matala must tell us from prison through you that you are not associated with him. I find that a bit problematic, Minister. I will leave it there, Chair, but I want to ask now, the interministerial committee, because we all, not all, but I heard you making a mistake that the president formed the NPKTT. You called NPKTT. It was not formed by the president. The president formed the interministerial committee, which was constituted by ministers from different departments. And then those ministers brought their administrators and people who can process these issues into those meetings where they said to them, guys, and that's the evidence we had here. We have a crisis here. How do we go about it? How do we resolve it? And then suggestions have been thrown around, and then it's left to those guys to go and put up a plan and then come back to the interministerial committee and say, we think we need to form a political killing task team. So on your own, as politicians, you are not going to do it. You had no power to do it. You could only sit there and canvass issues politically and say, we want to deal with this thing, and this is how we think we can deal with it, but go and work on it and come back to us. That's exactly what they did and came back to you. And that's how the Interministerial Committee is constituted. There will be a national commissioner. If there is justice there, there will be NDPP and maybe DG of Justice Department. If there is state security, there will be DG and whoever. They will all come with you so that they listen to what are the concerns of the principals, and then they go and do what is expected of them. And therefore, technically, I put it to you, it was not established by politicians. No president established a national, political killing task team. It was a product of the Interministerial Committee, which instructed the administrators to go and work out a plan, brought it back, we ironed it up, and then it was actualized administratively, as it were, but having considered the political interest of the political principals.
So what's your question?
The question is, do you still convinced that you have a power to disband that which you have not established?
Yes, I did say the Interministerial Committee is not part of the 7th Administration. And the Minister of Police was chair of that Interministerial Committee. It means that when there was no Interministerial Committee, the office or the department that is overseeing it is that of police, led by a member of cabinet. Then I'm confronted with all the issues that I've related, all these issues, and I want to do something out of that particular problem. And then I act in the manner that I did, supported by the Constitution and supported by the legislative framework. And I don't see anything wrong in terms of the law as such, because I don't see any other way, or couldn't see any other way. Yes, I may have, people are talking about consulting before or after and so on, but the reality of the matter is that we have a Minister of Police was allowed by legislation, I believe so, and the Constitution, I believe so, and I went on to do this.
Minister, you seem to suggest that interministerial committees get dissolved with elections. It's not, with due respect, interministerial committee is not Minister Mchunu, Minister Akele, Minister, is Minister of Police, Minister of Defense, meaning that minister will always be there even if those individuals are no longer there. Because if you are arguing it that way, that something established on the, during the 6th term, when the 7th term comes in, it automatically gets dissolved. Then you have to make reference, you have to show us where, which terms of reference of interministerial committee said that when the term of political office of certain politicians comes to an end, automatically this comes to an end. Where? Because there's no law that says that. That's why these things are not constituted by individuals. They are constituted by departments which will always be there even when we are no longer there. So part of your handover is Minister of Police. Part of what I'm responsible for is the chairing of interministerial committee that is responsible for political killings task team, amongst other things. These are the people who constitute that interministerial, because you inherit those activities. And when you guys go back and meet together as a collective that represent these departments, you then say, no, we don't think there is a need for this to go on, and therefore let's close this and give the president a report. A person who established the interministerial committee that produced political killing task team has not dissolved the interministerial committee. We only had the announcement of the interministerial committee, but there is no date for the dissolution of the interministerial committee. And therefore, it means you came in and just undermined what has been there. The political killing task team is not only constituted by police. There are prosecutors who are also dedicated to those things. They are magistrate or whatever dedicated to those responsibilities. And therefore, for one single minister to take a decision to dissolve a team that involves other departments, it can't be constitutional. No constitutional power gives you to dissolve a task team members of prosecutors who are dealing with political killings. You can't.
No,
because you speak about this thing as if it's only police who are involved. That's why it came from interministerial committee. It's a product of interministerial committee because it's constituted by different people, not only the police. And if that is the case, you have no power to dissolve other people who don't belong to your department. What do you have to say about that, Minister?
My response is that there was no interministerial committee in the 7th administration. And interministerial committee is constituted by the president and cabinet, not by any other person as you wish, or you as you may wish. It doesn't feature, and I didn't have power to call other ministers on the basis that in the 6th administration there was interministerial committee when it is not there. It wouldn't work. It doesn't work.
Minister, is your answer that once the new administration comes in, interministerial committees are automatically dissolved?
That's how it works, unless the interministerial committees, because they are announced to say there's an interministerial committee chaired by so-and-so for what and so on and so on. These things are announced, they are done deliberately. They don't get, you don't walk into the new administration automatically with what was in the 6th administration. It doesn't work like that.
Do you have a closing report of that interministerial committee? Because if you say it dissolves, it must have a closing report that now we're out, the term has come to an end, there will be a new administration, this is how we've dealt with the issues. Where is the closing report of this interministerial committee, which will have, perhaps amongst other things, informed your decision to dissolve the PKT team?
No, I know that the last time the interministerial committee met was 2023. I know there was a press briefing in March in 2024. I don't have a report of the interministerial committee, closing report or whatever report. All I have is a handover report from former Minister Cele, who was indicating what activities are taking place under his stewardship.
Minister, are you aware that there is a interministerial task team that was established in 2022 is still in place now on traditional leadership? And how many administrations have changed since then?
It would mean that it has featured in all the next administrations, but deliberately so, not taken for granted that it exists.
Yeah, but you can't show any minutes of cabinet that says in this administration that interministerial committee is dissolved. There is no such a thing. The president doesn't dissolve the interministerial committee. Cabinet doesn't, because if you say the 2022 interministerial task team is featuring in these different administrations, it means this one we're talking about of political killing task team did not fall into this new administration. But for it not to fall into this new administration, the cabinet would have had to resolve, or the president would have had to make that decision that this interministerial committee has come to an end. You can't give me all of both the president's minutes or note or the cabinet minutes that says this team, interministerial committee, has since been dissolved. It doesn't belong to us.
Yeah, I don't believe that it works like that. That there's ever a day when you dissolve whatever ministerial committee or task team of cabinet that would have been there. It gets pronounced deliberately in terms of reference and all of those things, and you start working.
Minister, there is no rule you are referring me to. There is no terms of reference you are referring me to. There is no presidential executive decision you are referring me to. Nothing that says the Interministerial Committee on Political Killing Task Team has come to an end. There's no, and you don't even say it is automatic. And if you say it's automatic, you have to refer me to some binding documents, either the Constitution or whatever guidelines or terms of reference that are there. You came in and ignored the Interministerial Committee and proceeded like it's not there without anyone saying to you it's no longer there. 2, Interministerial Committee was not going to convene itself because it was convened by the Minister of Police. Wherever they are still waiting for you to convene them. You are not saying you took an effort to convene them. And they come together and you say to them, guys, this is the end of it. We now are going the separate ways. No closing report, nothing. We cannot have a government that works like that. You can't say to me, it doesn't work like that. The government announces this initiative, and when the initiative has come to an end, they must respectfully come back to the citizens and say, this brings us to the end on this matter. We have since submitted the closing report to the president or something to that effect. If you say this is how you guys have gone about it, that is disrespectful to our society, which knows that there is an interministerial committee that deals with these matters, and then it gets dissolved. It doesn't even have a courtesy of saying goodbye. When it comes in, it knocks. When it leaves, it doesn't say bye. That's a root in interministerial committee. So, Minister, you are the one who ignored the interministerial committee and overlooked it and didn't care. Because if you say Minister Treles came and briefed you about this and that, he would have told you, amongst other things I was doing, was to chair the interministerial committee seized with the political killings in KZN. What's your response to it?
My response is the same as said before, that in the 7th administration, you don't have an interministerial committee on the National Political Task Team. And if you say I ignored, you mean to say it was created and I didn't assume or perform my duties as far as that is concerned after it had been established in the 7th administration. And I'm saying in response, it was not established. So I couldn't ignore something that doesn't exist. And no cabinet. So you are like me. If I can't find a closing report of the interministerial, you can't find it either. I would have been happier if you said, out of my own worry, I went to look for the closing report, I found it, or the minutes, I found them, or whatever you are talking about. Those documents don't exist. And I am not responsible for their non-existence.
So seated here, me and you, there was no date of the dissolution of the Interministerial Committee of the 6th administration. There was no date of its dissolution. And your argument is, in your 7th administration, there was no establishment of an interministerial committee. Inofella moyeng, so it just disappeared, just like that. After coming up with such a powerful instrument to fight crime in South Africa, and then you come in, the whole thing just disappeared, and you say we must accept that the 7th administration never had a thing. This is the same government, this is the same president who has established the whole thing. You'll expect that there will be a continuity, and if there is no longer a need, then you'll come and say, you come together and say, guys, we no longer need this, we're done. Because we've been canvassing this point with you, Minister. You dissolved the interministerial committee single-handedly because you are the convener. I mean, they never said, Honorable uSenzo Mchunu. They said the interministerial committee will be convened by the Minister of Police. And when you came in, you had a duty to convene the interministerial committee. You didn't. You dissolved it unannounced and then proceeded to take this kind of actions you took without consultation with anyone.
That's not correct. That's not factual.
But how do you explain?
It's your thoughts,
no, but
and I respect those thoughts.
No, but Minister, how do you explain that a committee that must be chaired by Minister of Police, you come in as a Minister of Police, you don't convene it, and then you say it's automatic that when the new administration comes in, it automatically dissolves. And I'm like, show me the law that says that. You can't point me to any law that says that.
Now, I'm saying you are sharing your thoughts with us, not necessarily talking facts. The fact is, in the 7th administration, there isn't an interministerial committee on national political testing.
So before you dissolve PKTT, such a powerful fighting force against crime, you don't talk to anyone. You don't talk to your colleagues in cabinet. You will say it doesn't work like that. You don't talk to the man who established the interministerial committee which produced this, including your not legal advisor, your special advisor who's an advocate. You don't talk to him. On your own, you take a decision as powerful as this, alone, without consultation. And you want to argue that you consulted the president after the fact. Why? Democracy wouldn't work like that.
We have discussed this thing at some length here in the ad hoc committee, and I referred the committee at the meeting of the 1st of November, and I referred also to the meeting of the 22nd of November, and I showed you my comments of the Honorable Committee, my comments there in those two meetings, and the comments made by the National Commissioner. Now, you can't then say you never discussed with anybody, you alone, when in fact minutes are there indicating very clearly, black and white, that we were in a meeting, we discussed, and I have said, long before I arrived, there was a study which was for all practical purposes intended to be brought into existence and replace the National Political Killings Task Team. And I said again, before I arrived, there was a memorandum that was asking for an extension, but in fact asking for a funding of 94 million. And 20 million was advanced to that team before I arrived. So I'm not the first one who come and I talk about disbandment. And further to that, I'm saying there have been pressures that have become prominent in terms of what is expected of a Department of Police, in terms of bringing down crime generally, but even specific matters. And long before I arrived, there's a structure that is being done, completed, implemented. In fact, in 2024, there was an implementation document signed and put in the office or on the table of the National Commissioner. And it was not processed for over a year until it gets processed in 2025. Now, all those things would tell you that there was always an intention to disband or to dissolve the National Political Killings Task Team based on what people were doing at that time. So I come at some point and I found all these intentions in writing, not in theory. Coupled with what I then do in terms of analyzing the situation. And I did speak here that 35% of killings in South Africa come from organized crime. 34 come from taxi violence. And 24 come from political killings task team. And I said about 7 come from personal killings. So when you discuss a matter like this, you have to put it into context. You don't isolate it. You don't single it out as if minister was appointed to preside over the national political task team. There was a whole department, the whole functionality of police, and the minister was allowed to think anew and make your own contribution that you believed would work, and not merely say, I'm continuing with what has happened, despite the imperatives, even the new objectives outlined by the president. You don't do it like that. You apply your mind, you discuss, you change even the structure. What are you going to say about the structure? The departmental organogram. Do you say, I didn't consult when I dealt with the new structure, trying to make it adapt to the new conditions? You're not going to say so. So don't single out one thing. Take everything that we have done in the department and not therefore say, just because of the way in which we dealt with national political killings task team, then every other thing doesn't count. It can't work like that.
So, Minister, Brown Mokhodzi is not your close associate, he's your comrade, who you have his phone and you communicate and all of that. What is the difference between a close associate and comrades? Are we not just playing with semantics? Because you denied that is your close associate, but you talk on the phone, you've got phone numbers of each other. What is the difference there between, because you denied in the committee on the 5th of March. And then now you agree, he's my comrade, I've known him from 2017. What is the difference?
I have so many people, just to put it simply.
No, even before you proceed, I heard you giving example with Honorable Bredenbach, like, saying, like, I know you, but we know you know her, the same way you know all of us, but you can't claim to be a comrade of Honorable Bredenbach or anything of that sort, but you know her. And you can't claim to have a number and you communicate constantly and all of that. But when we bring it to you that you are a close associate, you say, no, I'm not a close associate, I'm a comrade. That is playing with semantics.
No, not at all. I deny that strongly. It doesn't work like that. On my cell phone, I can't tell you offhand how many people I have as contacts, as written on the cell phone. Names and surname and numbers. Some of the numbers, or many of the numbers, I've held for many years. Now, I'm not being asked questions why I keep those numbers, why I talk to those people, why I use those numbers. And I want to guess, and I'm merely taking a chance. You also have quite a lot of people on your cell phone who are there. Now, I don't know why I'm being asked to display data sothando for Mchunu. Now that there are problems arising in that angle, people want you to confirm, come here and say, cha nginesdata sothando luka Mchunu or sokwazana nomchunu. Alukho. And ayikho leyo contact ongayibeza oyibeke ku status of an associate, even referring to the dictionary what an associate is. The person who chose to say I'm Mchunu's associate would have consulted the dictionary and he knew what he was saying. And when I go there myself, I shouldn't be blamed for doing what they did. And then using that word. I'm using the same word, the same term. And I'm saying I'm not. And I'm saying, if everybody you call just because they are on your cell phone. So you're all my associates. So let's bring everything to a standstill and say, all right, Mkhotsi is my associate. And I'm saying he is not my associate. I've never gone anywhere with him. Restaurant, sit down anywhere. It has never happened beyond just phoning. So I don't know why I would be associated to somebody that I'm saying myself. I'm not. If, for instance, somebody I know passes on, and I go to some funeral, and you find that in a funeral there is somebody who is